Hello everyone, I'm Stan Houle, Program Manager in the Office of Asset Management and Portfolio Oversight. The Department of Housing and Urban Development issued draft revised guidance on creating and reviewing rent comparability studies recently and received quite a few responses to our request for feedback. After considering the feedback, the department revised and posted the new guidance on our Section 8 Renewal website. Today, we would like to provide you with a high-level introduction to those changes. These changes have less to do with the changing policy and more to do with making it easier for appraisers and reviewers to do their job. With me today is Cynthia Lane, who will introduce our speakers. Cynthia?
Hello. Pratima Damani is the presenter today for the Rent Comparability Study. Pratima is the founder and CEO of SP Group with over 18 years of experience in management consulting and financial analytical services. Ms. Damani's experience includes overseeing multiple projects involving due diligence and desk reviews for regulatory compliance assessments. She currently serves as the project manager for providing the due diligence services in support of underwriting applications submitted under the FHA Insured 223F and 223A7 and RAD programs. Through her involvement as a project manager with HUD since 2012, Ms. Damani brings significant knowledge of rent comparability studies. Ms. Damani holds a master's in business administration degree from Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern University.
Welcome to the training for Rent Comparability Studies. My name is Pratima Damani, and I am the CEO of SP Group. In this training, I will provide you with an overview of the revisions and enhancements made to Chapter 9 that can be found in the Section 8 Renewal Guide. This presentation is organized to provide a walkthrough of the changes made to Chapter 9, which primarily include 1. Enhanced format and layout, 2. Strengthened standards, criteria, and procedures, and 3. Established tools and techniques for RCS appraisers, reviewers, and owners. In the following slides, I will provide you with the changes and enhancements under each of these 3 areas. Please note that this training deck does not reflect any policy changes. We believe that as a result of these enhancements, the revised Chapter 9 should lead to more effective and efficient RCS processing for owners, RCS appraisers, and reviewers. So let's start with the first topic, enhanced format and layout. There are 4 big changes made with respect to enhancing the format and layout. More specifically, the revised Chapter 9 includes a roadmap that serves as a navigational tool for readers. The appendices are reorganized and categorized by stakeholders. The chapter now separates conceptual guidance from technical details. And lastly, the chapter has established introduction under each section. Each of these points is discussed in more detail in the following slides. I would like to emphasize again that majority of these changes and revisions are not new, but simply a reorganization of the prior guidance. Overall, the purpose of these revisions is to promote accessibility and administration of the guidance. So let's start with the roadmap included in the revised Chapter 9. The roadmap essentially serves as an enhanced table of contents for Chapter 9. This slide includes an excerpt of what this roadmap looks like, but the complete version can be found under Section 9.3 of the revised chapter. The roadmap provides a list of each section in the chapter and the appendices, and the check marks show the primary stakeholder for the respective section. The purpose of the roadmap is to facilitate navigation of the guidance and provide a visualization to the users on where to go for the relevant guidance. However, as always, it is useful for all three groups of stakeholders to read all sections, even those that may not pertain specifically to them, in order to fully understand the process. The next topic is reorganized appendices. I want to emphasize that the reorganized appendices contain guidance that was already in existence, either in the body of the old chapter or in the old appendices. The revised appendices are now grouped by stakeholders, i.e., the owners, appraisers, and the reviewers. For instance, Appendix 9.1 provides guidance and materials to RCS appraisers, while Appendix 9.2 includes guidance to owners. We believe that the grouping should allow users to go to one place to retrieve relevant information needed for their requirements. In general, the reorganized appendices include more detailed and step-by-step instructions, as well as sample documentation and links to forms and templates. The third change with respect to enhanced format and layout includes separating conceptual from technical guidance. The old Chapter 9 included lengthy discussions and technical details buried in the body of the chapter and the appendices. At times, this caused confusion due to redundancy in guidance, or users would pick and choose which requirements to prioritize over others. The revised chapter should reduce the ambiguity and inconsistency that may have existed earlier. Specifically, the body of the revised chapter now provides information on fundamental concepts, such as selecting appropriate comparables and making reasonable adjustments. Meanwhile, the reorganized appendices provide technical details, such as line-by-line breakdown of every item on the rent grid, with specific examples where appropriate. The last change with respect to enhanced format and layout is an introduction that is now provided under each section in the revised chapter. The introduction is a paragraph right at the beginning of the section that describes the purpose of that section and relates the guidance to the relevant stakeholder. This introductory paragraph provides an overview of the distinct purpose and audience for that section. So here is an example of an introductory paragraph under Section 9.9, which provides guidance for analyzing the subject property. It identifies the primary target group, in this case it's the RCS appraiser, as well as provides the scope of guidance that is included under Section 9.9. That covers all the enhancements with respect to format and layout. So now let's move to the second of the three changes, which is strengthen standards, criteria, and procedures. Under this topic, we have four areas to discuss. First and foremost is the strengthened narrative requirements. Second is the updated Sample RCS. Third is the inclusion of sample documentation. And lastly, there is clarification on communication protocols and required timelines. Overall, these revisions should promote compliance in the preparation and submission process. Each of these four key items is discussed in the following slides. The first change is the strengthened narrative requirements. This slide discusses the requirements pertaining to narrative for comparable selection process. In the revised chapter, guidance was added under Section 910C for RCS appraiser to include a narrative describing the process used for identifying the comparable properties. The additional narrative should assist the RCS reviewers in gaining an understanding of the search process that the RCS appraiser engaged in when selecting a set of comparables. The RCS appraiser must document the means used to find the comparables and must also explain and justify the rationale and reasons for selecting some comparables while excluding others. Another aspect of strengthened narrative requirements is under Section 912C, which provides guidance on the two-part narrative. For adjustments that exceed a nominal amount, the RCS appraiser must present a two-part narrative. The RCS appraiser should not only provide an explanation for why the adjustment was made, but also how the dollar value was derived for adjustments exceeding the nominal amount. Section 12C defines nominal amount as an adjustment amount that exceeds the greater of $10 or 2% of unadjusted rent of the comparable. Let's visit this concept with an example. This slide shows an example from Section 912C. In this example, an adjustment amount of $20 is proposed. Assuming that $20 exceeds 2% of the unadjusted rent of the comparable, the RCS appraiser should provide a two-part narrative as shown here. A simple statement such as the appraiser applied an adjustment of $20 would be unacceptable in this situation, as it doesn't specifically explain how the appraiser arrived at the $20 adjustment amount. Another change is the updated Sample RCS. The updated sample exemplifies and clarifies the changes and updates made to Chapter 9. The Sample RCS now includes a universal example illustrated through a family-friendly subject property as opposed to an elderly project. It also includes standardized documentation such as owners' and appraisers' letters and certifications. It includes examples of the revised narrative requirements for comparable selection, as well as two-part narrative for adjustments exceeding the nominal amount. Finally, the sample includes an after rehab scenario as well, as it illustrates the market rent threshold test. The revised guidance includes a link to the Sample RCS. The third change I would like to discuss is inclusion of sample documentation. The revised guidance includes templates and samples of letters and certifications. This slide summarizes the samples included in the various appendices. HUD encourages all RCS appraisers and owners to use the suggested sample to promote standardization and consistency in documentation. HUD requires that all RCS reviewers complete the required checklists while performing their reviews. The checklists are provided as links to downloadable Excel files under Appendix 9.3. One of the sample documentations included under Appendix 9.2.1 is the owner's checklist. This is a voluntary checklist that is a new addition to the guidance to make it easier for the owner to ensure that the RCS package is complete prior to submission. The checklist provides a complete list of items required for an acceptable submission. And the last change under the topic of strengthened standards, criteria, and procedures is clarification on communication protocols and timelines. Please note that the timelines under the revised guidance have not been modified or changed. These are the same timelines that were in existence in the prior guidance. The revised chapter only clarifies the timelines and eliminates conflicting guidance. The revised chapter includes guidance on time requirements under Section 9.7. And Section 915C lays out the steps required if an RCS submission is incomplete or if an RCS contains dated information. The timeline showed on this slide is applicable at the 5th year life cycle of the RCS or when the contract terminates early and a new RCS is required. RCS reviewers must monitor the RCS processing timeline. The Excel-based checklists provided in Appendix 9.3 should facilitate the monitoring process for the reviewers. It is important to note that the reviewer's timeline does not start until the receipt of a full, complete RCS package. As such, if the owner submits information in bits and pieces, the processing clock will not start until a full package is received. This slide provides guidance to RCS reviewers regarding protocols and timelines when the reviewer has questions or concerns on the RCS. The specific guidance can be found under Section 917B and 917C. The RCS reviewer can clarify minor issues through informal follow-up directly with the RCS appraiser, only if authorized by the owner. This is why it is important for the owner to authorize permission to contact the RCS appraiser in the owner's cover letter. If the RCS reviewer has substantive concerns and questions, HUD requires written record of all correspondence between the reviewer and the owner or the RCS appraiser. This slide covers the guidance on owner's appeals, which can be found under Section 918 of the revised chapter. It is important to note that all appeals are reviewed and decided by HUD staff at the appropriate regional center. HUD headquarters do not get involved in reviewing owner appeals. Similarly, PBCAs are not expected to be involved in the appeal process unless the owner appeals a PBCA decision, in which case the PBCA review appraiser may be involved to provide his or her insights on the initial decision. If the owner chooses to appeal, HUD or the contract administrator may prepare a short-term renewal at the then current rents to allow time for processing the appeal. Section 918 provides procedures for both first appeal as well as second appeal, if applicable. Please note that as stated in Section 914C, there is no appeal available when a HUD-commissioned RCS prevails. So now let's discuss the third change, which is tools and techniques that should facilitate a thorough and consistent review process. Tools and techniques covers 5 items listed on this slide. I will be discussing each one of these items in the following slides. Let's start with the mandatory market rent threshold test procedures. The mandatory market rent threshold test is now discussed under Section 914. It was previously covered under Section 923. The new Section 914 lays out the steps required for the mandatory testing to determine if a HUD-commissioned RCS is required. It entails 3 steps: computing the subject's median rent, followed by identifying the 140% of the median gross rent estimate by subject's zip code, and then finally comparing the two to determine if a threshold is triggered. I will provide a walkthrough of each of these steps in the following slides along with an example. But please note that special exceptions to this threshold test are outlined in Appendix 917, which covers 2 special scenarios. 1, what happens if median market rent in a zip code equals or exceeds $2,000? And 2, what happens when median gross rent estimate is unavailable for a certain zip code? This slide here illustrates Step 1, computing subject's median rent. The important point to note here is whether the subject project has odd or even number of units. As illustrated in this slide, the median rent is computed using the guidance provided for respective number of units. If the subject has an even number of units, the median rent is the average of the 2 middle units. If the subject has odd number of units, the median rent is the rent of the middle unit. Section 914B provides specific guidance on computing the subject's median rent. Step 2 entails identifying the 140% of the median gross rent for the subject's zip code. The mandatory market rent threshold test is based on the American Community Survey, or ACS, 5-year estimate. This is a market-based survey that is frequently updated and widely available. HUD provides an Excel-based downloadable and searchable file for RCS appraisers and RCS reviewers to identify the 140% median gross rent estimate for the subject's zip code. So this slide recaps the results of steps 1 and 2 through an example. In this particular case, a comparison of the 140% of the median gross rent estimate and the subject's median rent results in a scenario where a HUD-commissioned RCS is not required. The table here illustrates the requirement from RCS appraiser under the 3-step process for mandatory market rent threshold test. The RCS appraiser should include a similar table in the transmittal letter. This is also shown in the Sample RCS. This slide illustrates an example for when a HUD-commissioned RCS is required because the subject's median rent exceeds the 140% of the median gross rent estimate for the project's zip code. Section 914C provides guidance on what would happen in this situation when a HUD-commissioned RCS is required. Please note that there would be no appeals of rent determination if a HUD RCS is commissioned and it prevails. The second change under the established tools and techniques is the revised and updated Excel-based checklists for reviewers. The updated checklists are intended to make the review of the RCS easier. The revised guidance includes a link to downloadable Excel-based workbook that is comprised of 3 parts. 1, initial screening, which is designed to check for completeness and timeliness of the RCS. 2, detailed screening, which is designed to ensure adequate narrative for comparable selection. And 3, rent grid analysis, designed to evaluate adjustments for reasonableness. Guidance on these checklists is provided under Section 916. The revised guidance also introduces minimum qualifications for reviewers. These qualification requirements are not new, but are now updated, particularly for substantive reviewers. Section 915 in the revised chapter outlines 2 types of reviewers, initial and substantive, who could be the same individual or 2 separate individuals. However, the major difference between the 2 types of reviewers is whether the reviewer is state certified. HUD requires that a substantive reviewer must be a state certified reviewer, especially for all reviews completed by the PBCAs and TCAs. For HUD regional centers, where there may be a shortage of staffing, HUD may allow a non-appraiser staff to complete a substantive review only if that staff member is pre-approved by the regional director and if the staff member meets the minimum qualifications as required under Section 915. HUD requires that regional directors perform ongoing assessment of gaps in skills and training for RCS reviewers, particularly for non-appraiser staff engaged in RCS reviews. It is important to note that PBCAs must have a state-certified appraiser complete the substantive review at all times. This slide describes the required minimum qualifications for non-appraiser substantive reviewers, which would only be HUD staff. Since all PBCA substantive reviewers would have to be state-certified appraisers, the minimum qualifications are not applicable to PBCA substantive reviewers. The non-appraiser HUD staff must have the relevant experience and knowledge listed in this matrix and must also be approved by the regional director. HUD requires that all reviewers, whether initial or substantive, must have familiarity with the chapter itself. The revised guidance introduces triggers for second review under Section 916 and Appendix 954. These triggers only apply when a substantive review is being performed by a non-appraiser HUD staff. Therefore, these are directed to HUD staff only. When there is a trigger for second review, the non-appraiser HUD staff is required to seek input of a second reviewer for only the specific line item that triggered the second review, as opposed to the entire RCS. The second reviewer under this scenario could either be a state-certified appraiser or a non-appraiser HUD staff who is authorized by the regional director to serve as a second reviewer. Again, I want to emphasize that triggers only apply to non-appraiser HUD staff completing substantive reviews. There are 8 potential trigger items as listed on this slide. These line items were selected based on reviewer feedback of most commonly encountered issues or concerns with RCSs. The thresholds identified in Appendix 954 represent unusual adjustment amounts for that category based on HUD's prior experience. The thresholds were chosen to facilitate the review process and identify the unusual adjustments rather than impede the non-appraiser HUD staff from completing a substantive review. The rent grid analysis tool in the reviewer's Excel-based checklist facilitates the analysis for second review triggers. This slide provides a snapshot of this tool. It illustrates that the second review trigger auto-populates when and if applicable. If triggered, the second reviewer is required to sign off on the specific line item that triggered the review, as opposed to the entire RCS. If the two cannot reach a consensus on that line item, they are required to consult with a state-certified appraiser whose decision would then prevail. Finally, the last change is the requirement for record keeping, as required under Section 915D of the revised chapter. HUD now requires that relevant submission and review documentation, as noted in this slide, must be retained for at least a period of 3 years by all HUD and PBCA reviewers. So in summary, all changes and updates to Chapter 9 are designed to make the creation and review of an RCS easier. The enhanced format and layout, strengthened standards, criteria, and procedures, as well as the updated tools and techniques come together to provide consistency and clarity to the RCS process. These changes should also help ensure compliance in RCS preparation and submission, as well as ensure a thorough and consistent review process. This concludes the training on the revisions to Chapter 9, which can be found at the link shown on this slide. For any questions related to this training or on the revisions to Chapter 9, please contact Mr. Stan Houle at the HUD headquarters. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your time.